Collect what you like. It seems simple enough, right? Like, we collect what we like, collect what you enjoy. That's what you should do when you focus on becoming a Pokemon card collector or collecting Pokemon cards. You focus on collecting what you like. And truer words, honestly, have never been spoken. It's really good advice. It's really sound advice. If you like something, that's what you should collect. And other people are probably more than likely to collect it as well. And if it goes up in value, that's great. However, collecting what you like isn't always the easiest thing in the world. First of all, there's so many different areas in Pokemon. There's a ton of different niches. So understanding, gathering information, figuring out which avenue you really want to go down and what area you want to focus on is not always the easiest thing in the world. Also, the world of information now, when it comes to Pokemon card collecting, is so different than what it was 25 years ago, 28 years ago when Pokemon first started. There is so much more data out there. Back then, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you would go on message boards, you would go on different forums, you would go on Pojo, and you would go on Pokemon Trading Cards Online, and you would go on PokeGym, and you would type in messages and meet like-minded individuals through means of message boards. And now, even with Elite Four being a thing, but now we have YouTube, and we have TikTok, and we have other areas where there's additional means of gathering information, and then you have the power of influence, and it just seems like sometimes your mind can just become very overwhelmed with all the different niches. So collecting what you like isn't always the easiest thing in the world once you factor in influence and information. And one of the biggest influential things out there is money, is greed, is the idea and the understanding that one day something that you're collecting or something that you currently have that you love could be worth a lot more than what it is currently. And that is something that really messes with our minds. It's something that was a huge problem during the pandemic because we had all these numbers that were floating around that were just unheard of. When you're talking about base set booster boxes during the height of the pandemic hitting $28,000, those were $70, $80, $90 boxes that you could find at Toys R Us on clearance and at different big box stores that are now worth, even today, still worth $14,000, $15,000. That's huge increases as far as price goes. So having that influence and that knowledge, that information kind of adjusts our mindset, right? So the power of influence and information can really put a damper on that whole mindset of collecting what you like. Now, the great thing about all this additional information and the great thing about all this additional influence is that it does present and it does bring in all of these individuals who have had so much experience in the hobby, who can give you additional insights as to different niches and different areas of the hobby that you might enjoy. And I think that's what the great thing is about all this extra information. A lot of people ask me all the time, hey Fanny, who do you watch on YouTube? Who do you look to? Honestly, like everybody. Like, I love a lot of channels out there. I really enjoy them. Like, I really go and I watch a lot of different content, a lot of different creators, because I think that they're entertaining. I think that they provide a lot of information. I think you can learn something from just about anyone. So I appreciate all the content creators out there. I watch a lot of different content creators, regardless of what their size might be. A lot of times I'm looking for information and I'm trying to find something, and somebody, who might only have 100 subscribers has really good information. I'm like, okay, well, I want to subscribe to this person because they provide information that I'm looking for. And you have all these other individuals giving insight and giving knowledge, and I think that is extremely important. However, it is tough to collect what you like. It is tough because you always have a lot of people in your mind, a lot of people in your ear, and that can make things more difficult. So it's important to try and separate yourself from that. We're going to talk about the idea of collecting sealed product, because that is something that a lot of people talk about, right? Sealed product collecting was not something that a lot of people did in the early 2000s, even in the mid 2000s to early teens, because it just wasn't really a mindset that a lot of individuals have. Now that we have this age of information where there's a lot more people talking and displaying their collections and things like that, a lot of people are probably like, holy buckets, I wish I collected the EX series or the EX era booster boxes. Look at how much that value has increased over the years. Look how cool they look in display cases and things like that. It's absolutely insane. And for the most part, every single booster box that has ever been released, for the most part, has been available right around that $90 mark. Maybe some even a little bit cheaper, some obviously a little bit more expensive. But even when you look at sets like Evolving Skies, for example, when it got its third wave of a print run, which was decent size, and it was combined with a bunch of other products that released at the same time, booster boxes for Evolving Skies were posted on eBay. You could find information out there to give you ideas of where to look for booster boxes of Evolving Skies for $90, for $95, for $100, right around that price point. So every booster box has been available right around that price point. Obviously, that is going to be where you want to purchase. That is going to be the price point where you really want to get in at, because that's going to be the smartest decision for your collecting budget. Not what the price is going to be tomorrow, not what the price is going to be in the future. When you have that booster box right around that $90 mark, even lower for a lot of Scarlet and Violet era sets, that's kind of where you want to pull the trigger. And if you don't, and all of a sudden the price increases to $300, $400, or even up to MSRP at $150, if you missed out on it, that's okay. Then you make that decision, okay, well, at $140, at $160 for the new MSRP, is that okay with me? My budget is a little bit better now. I'm in a better financial situation. Am I okay with that, knowing that, yeah, it might continue to increase in price over time, but it's going to take a long time to get there? That's the decision that you need to make. And then we look at information, we look at patterns, we look at how performance has done on a lot of these sets and try to put together pieces on how certain sets might perform. So I'm going to flip you guys around. We're going to look specifically at the Sword and Shield era sets, because these are the ones that really got impacted a lot by the pandemic. Obviously, we had this huge interest of people coming in, a huge flock of people. And I will say this, the thing about sealed investing, and this is the most important thing when it comes to making your decision and collecting what you like, whether you want to collect sealed or whether you want to collect individual cards will continue to show up. So if you're somebody who really wants to collect Moonbreons, there is going to be more Moonbreons available, because every time an Evolving Skies pack gets opened, you are one pack closer to getting an Umbreon VMAX. And that's not the degenerate mindset that you should have, but every single time that more and more people opening up Evolving Skies booster packs on a daily basis, there are more Umbreon VMAXs that are being put out into the wild, put out into the universe. However, every time an Evolving Skies booster pack gets opened, one less Evolving Skies booster pack exists. Every time an Evolving Skies Elite Trainer box gets opened, one less Evolving Skies Elite Trainer box exists. And Pokemon can reprint. They've done it before. They've reprinted sets up to 2.5 years, up to 3 years after a set has been released. But here we are knocking on the 3-year door, the 3-year window, proverbial window for some of these sets like Battle Styles, like Chilling Reign, like Fusion Strike, like Evolving Skies. They have been out for a while now, so that reprint window is starting to close and close and close. And as boxes continue to get open, as you have people streaming on different platforms, selling box breaks, people buying, people participating, you cannot go back to a sealed booster box or a sealed booster pack after it has been opened. You can add additional rare Trevenants, you can add Garbodor VMAXs, you can add alternate art Rayquaza VMAXs and alternate art Umbreons, but you cannot add more sealed product unless Pokemon decides to go out and do something like a super late reprint, which historically they haven't done. So that is an important thing to realize when you are collecting what you like and when you are making your decisions as far as spending your collection budget, because sealed displays can look really cool. You have acrylic cases, you might put sealed booster boxes in acrylic cases, much like what you see, you know, if you watch Deep Pocket Monster, he's got this huge wall of just sealed booster boxes that he has collected over the past few years that are just, it looks really, really cool, right? We're going to look through all of these booster boxes from the Sword and Shield era, but also I did want to put in a little bit of additional information. We look at this stuff frequently, and I want to add information. I want to continue to try and correlate pieces and put connect dots together. So I added the total PSA graded pop, the total population of graded cards from a specific set. So that way, because I think it's important, because that tells you how popular a set might be as far as collectability goes from the cards inside the set. So we start out with like Sword and Shield base, and if you want to pause the video and if you want to comment down below, I do have a quick question for you, and we are going to explain the answer to you in a second here. But what do you think is the most graded set in the Sword and Shield era? And the answer might actually surprise you, because it definitely surprised me. And if it doesn't surprise you, obviously you're a lot smarter than me, which wouldn't surprise me at all. But we're going to go through this. So you can see at the top, Sword and Shield, the total PSA graded pop, there's 43,337. Honestly, I just took the number of total graded cards by PSA for this set. There are going to be some different variations, some foreign language variations in there and things like that, which is going to impact the total graded pop a little bit, but the numbers should still be fairly close for every single set. So 43,337. Obviously, this is before the era of alternate arts. This is before the era of trainer gallery. So you have gold cards, you have rainbow rares, and you have pretty much your full arts and your full art trainers and things like that. But you can see Sword and Shield actually on the decline now over the past 7 months here. In July is kind of where it was at its peak. It hit $295.58, and it's been tail spinning a little bit after that. Sword and Shield probably not a set that you really want to focus on, except maybe some of the contents that are inside, because this is not a set that a lot of people are going to run around and open up. Yes, we have the introduction of a new generation, but you can kind of look at different sets in the past and look at the beginning of a certain block, like what we've seen from Sun and Moon, what we've seen from sets prior to that, black and white base. Obviously, XY era is a little bit different, but Sword and Shield not performing nearly as well as what a lot of other sets are in the Sword and Shield era. So this is going down a little bit. It's hitting a 1-year low currently. It's at 268.65 and continuing to trend in the downward direction. Also, not a huge. This 43,000 is a lot of graded cards, but when you compare it to these other sets that we're going to look at, definitely not an astronomical number as far as the amount of graded cards. Rebel Clash even worse, almost half the amount of graded population as far as Sword and Shield base, which is absolutely crazy. 23,655. Rebel Clash was a good set for competitive play, but not a great set for collectability. Not a lot of love for the main characters that were in Rebel Clash. It seems to be one of the sets that a lot of people look down on. The beginning of the Sword and Shield block, for example, like people were okay with Sword and Shield base, but Rebel Clash moving into Darkness Ablaze, there was a lot of attention at the time, and when people look back on it now and they kind of do their Sword and Shield rankings, these are probably going to be near the bottom of the ranking for you, just because they don't have the additional cards in there. They don't have the alternate arts. They don't have the trainer gallery. However, Rebel Clash doing extremely well, still not quite at the level of what we see Sword and Shield base, but less available out there, and it seems continuing to trend in the upward direction. It's been a little bit stagnant over the past couple months here, but you can see in March of 2023, this was $210.82. So over the past year, it's jumped up about 10%. It's sitting at $230.32 currently, which is just off of its 1-year high, which it hit in January of $231.62. If we look at Darkness Ablaze, and here's where you start seeing that graded population start going up. And this is when a lot of people started paying a ton of attention to grading their cards. Darkness Ablaze has been all over the place. The very interesting factor about Darkness Ablaze, about Vivid Voltage, about these next few sets that we're going to be looking at, is they were all a part of that massive reprint that brought Evolving Skies booster boxes down to that $90, $95 area. Like this was all a huge reprint that Pokemon kind of put out there saying, hey, we're going to make sure we make product available. And because of that, some of these less favorable sets, after we had been introduced to Battle Styles, Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, and Evolving Skies, those 4 sets came out, and a lot of people wanted to open those sets and focus on those sets. So the reprints that really impacted Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, brought those prices way down, and they still have not recovered. You can see Darkness Ablaze sitting at $151.33 currently, so that's just off of its 1-year high, which it hit a year ago, $155.53. And if you want, you can kind of look at the past year and say, okay, well, it's been relatively flat, but you did have an entry point at $129.24. So there still are boxes out there for Darkness Ablaze, a set that's 4 years old, that you can find under MSRP, which is really nice. However, again, not a whole lot of cards in the set that people are chasing down. So when you're looking at longevity of a set and you're starting to think, okay, well, I do think breakers are going to be around for a while, I do think people are going to want to rip open sets for a long time, the idea of opening up Darkness Ablaze, yeah, there's a Charizard VMAX in there, and yeah, there's a regular Charizard V in there, but what else is there? What else is there that's really going to get people excited about opening a set, and what can I compare that to? And honestly, there's just not a whole lot in the set that's going to drive people flocking to this set to open up. So I don't see huge returns out of something like Darkness Ablaze, because it's just not there, and that's why it's been so stagnant over the past couple years, ever since we got that massive reprint. Here's the biggest one, Vivid Voltage right here. So if the answer to the question before that you gave was Vivid Voltage, you would be correct, and I don't know how you figured out that answer better than me, because honestly, I didn't think about it, but once you put the pieces together, it does make sense, because this came out during a time where, first of all, Vivid Voltage was short printed when you consider the amount of interest that was in the hobby. So demand was kind of through the roof, and Vivid Voltage was kind of printed at the same level as what a lot of other booster boxes have been printed prior to that. They printed it at a level where they probably printed Darkness Ablaze at, they probably printed Rebel Clash. However, the giant insurgence of people and demand into the hobby because of that Logan Paul break, and because of Logic getting involved, and because of all these different factors that were influencing the whole community, everybody being locked in their basement and looking at their old cards and kind of reliving that nostalgia, Vivid Voltage was at a point where it sold out right away. It was out of print, out of stock, basically before the set even released. And that kind of was like, okay, well, now we have to kind of release a statement as the Pokemon company and say, hey, slow down, don't go too crazy, don't go out spending double, triple MSRP. We're going to fix this. It's just going to take time because the whole printing process takes a long time. And with everything else shutting down at the time of the pandemic, like printing facilities, people calling in sick to work, or people being absent from work, plus the skyrocketing costs, it was very difficult to do it in a timely manner. But you can see this one really following the same pattern as what we saw from Darkness Ablaze, still sitting right below or well below MSRP right now at 130, 174. So you can still enter this booster box below MSRP, really comparing it to what the back half of Sword and Shield is looking like. And we'll look at that in a minute here. But 142.24 was its high point, which it hit about a year ago and trended in the downward direction pretty much the entirety of 2023. Now, this one does have a bit of a kicker in it because it does have that Rainbow Rare Pikachu VMAX, which is still over $100, which is still a relatively expensive card. A lot of gradings of that one. However, outside of that card in the set, people are going to want to chase that Rainbow Rare Pikachu, but I think a lot of people had different mindsets when this set originally came out, and that's why the graded pop report is so high for this set, because people were grading Amazing Rares. This was our first introduction to Amazing Rares, which ended up being extremely plentiful, but the reprints after the interest level had already faded. The reprint of the booster boxes, the reprint of the Elite Trainer box has really brought pricing down, hit that 1 year low of 125.12, and it continues to trend in the downward direction. I don't see it going much lower than where it is right now. I think it's going to be fairly stagnant, come up a little bit, hover right around MSRP. But the next ones, once we start looking at the next set, now that we have the introduction to alternate arts, Battle Styles continues this downward trend. However, now that we have this introduction to alternate arts, these are the sets that are going to be more popular down the road for people to open. And that's just information that you can do, you can agree with, you can disagree with, but that's information that you kind of make your collecting budget decisions based off of. But you can see Battle Styles trending in the downward direction. This set was printed a little bit more. You can see in March of 2023, it was sitting at that 1 year high of $115.10. You look at the graded pop report for Battle Styles compared to just about every other set in the Sword and Shield block, 21,630 is absolutely insane. Way less in this one than a lot of these other sets. And you can see it's been trending in the downward direction because there's not a whole lot in the set that people are super excited to open. Obviously, you have that Sleepy Tyranitar, but outside of that, everything is relatively inexpensive in the set. Not a whole lot of chase cards, and people would prefer opening up other sets in the Sword and Shield block than Battle Styles, and because of that, that's why you have these lower prices. 101.56 was its low point, so you almost had sub $100 booster boxes in 2024, 3 years after the set came out, sitting at 107.31 right now. Chilling Reign, the important thing to remember is right now, buying stuff at $90 is obviously your goal, with the idea that, okay, well, over time, it may increase, but I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying here. As long as Pokemon products are available at MSRP, as long as they are available on the Pokemon Center website, and this is where I think a lot of people get confused, as long as Pokemon Center products are available for MSRP on the website, it is going to be very difficult for a product to get above MSRP as far as market value goes, because Pokemon Center is setting the MSRP. Pokemon is setting that manufacturer suggested retail price at $143 for a lot of these products, and as long as you can go over to pokemoncenter.com and buy it at $143, and I'm not saying you should buy it at $143, you should buy it obviously at that $90 price point, at that $80 price point. Your goal is to buy it as cheap as possible, but as long as it's available to buy, and that's the big thing right there where I think a lot of people get confused, at that $143 price point, it is going to be difficult for it to surge past that price point. Right now, Chilling Reign is currently out of stock on the Pokemon Center website. Fusion Strike booster boxes have gone out of stock on the Pokemon Center website. So now is the time where you might see bigger gains on these products because they're not available on the biggest website, the biggest platform, the most well-known platform for the casual collector to go to and buy Pokemon cards. Now that that's not available for them, they're going to start looking at secondary sources and the secondary market. And when it's not available on the first market, that's when those secondary markets start saying, hey, the value of this product is actually a little bit more because it's not available on the first market at the suggested retail price. So you use those secondary markets to buy products at $80 and $90, and then once the first market is unavailable at that suggested retail price, that's when that market value starts getting driven up faster and faster. So you can see Chilling Reign, now that it is out of stock on the Pokemon Center website, had slow gains pretty much the majority of 2023 up until January of 2024. Once it went out of stock, that's when it started soaring past that MSRP price point, jumped up to $173.57 in January. It's lost a little bit, but still sitting at $167.18. And again, this is going to be a set that people are going to want to open for for a long time because it does have some really cool alternate arts in it, and that's why you have graded numbers starting to go up a little bit. 48,133, the graded pop for that. Evolving Skies, I don't even know how to explain Evolving Skies. I don't think anybody knows how to explain Evolving Skies because it's just been absolutely nuts, and especially over the past couple of months, it's lost its mind again. It's taken up to another level. It's soaring closer and closer to Evolutions. The difference between Evolving Skies and Evolutions is obviously Evolving Skies has a lot of cards that you can pull. It still has a card that you can pull that's right around the booster box price, right around that $590.45 price point in that Umbreon VMAX, and continuing to trend in the upward direction. So this is the second most graded set in Sword and Shield. No surprise there, 137,615 graded cards, but you can see it did slow down a little bit. It dropped down to $380.99 right around beginning of summer in 2023 and was fairly level for most of the year. Gained a little bit, slow methodical growth, really strong growth up until January of 2024, and then it just went completely nuts. So it jumped up to $590.45 currently. That's a one-year high and continuing to trend in the upward direction with only about 28 listings available on TCG Player. The fun fact is that Chilling Reign, for example, actually had less booster boxes available on TCG Player than Evolving Sky. So I just thought that was interesting to kind of look at. Same thing with Fusion Strike. Fusion Strike now unavailable on the Pokemon Center website. You can still buy Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes of Fusion Strike, and we're going to talk about Fusion Strike in a couple of days. But now that it's out of stock, you can see it was able to soar past that MSRP price point. So if you bought in at $80, $90, because Fusion Strike was available at $80 and $90 for a very, very long time. Relatively flat for the majority of 2023, right around that MSRP price point because it was still in stock on the Pokemon Center website. You can see $138.47, giving people a little bit of incentive to buy from somewhere else besides the Pokemon Center website. And now that it went out of stock, the secondary market responded, and now it's starting to go higher and higher. Now it's sitting at $173, currently at a one-year high and continuing to trend in that upward direction. Total graded pop for this one, 54,864, so quite a few there, but not nearly as much as Brilliant Stars, 111,227. We did get a reprint of Brilliant Stars, which brought this price point down quite a bit. You can see it trending in the downward direction all the way up until November of 2023. That's where it hit that one-year low. And you can see it was up to $169.36, but now it's hovering just above MSRP at that $158.96 price point. Yes, these were available below $120. They were available right around $110, right around release, but Brilliant Stars was a very popular set, very quick, because it did have that alternate art Charizard in it. A lot of people were enjoying that. A lot of people were enjoying the introduction of Trainer Gallery cards, so this is going to be a popular set for quite some time. It is still available on the Pokemon Center website, which is why you don't see it jumping and soaring past MSRP, but still above MSRP, even though it's available on the Pokemon Center website. So sitting at $158.96 currently. Should stay relatively flat until it goes out of stock, and then once it goes out of stock, you should probably see some decent growth, because I don't think we're really in the window anymore for a lot of these Sword and Shield era sets to be reprinted. Astral Radiance did not get a part of that big reprint that we saw from Silver Tempest and from Lost Origin, and that's why Astral Radiance has seen such decent growth over the past year. You can see it jumped all the way up in August to a one-year high just below MSRP of $142.59 before coming back down a little bit. Hit about 120, which was just barely above its one-year low of 117.51, and now it's continued to climb up and climb up. These last remaining sets from Sword and Shield are still available on the Pokemon Center website, so if you got them at $90, $95, $100, that's great. A lot of these were available right around that $100 price point, if not sub $100, for a brief period of time, but now being lower in stock, I'm assuming at the Pokemon Center website, once they go out of stock, you're going to start see them kind of move past that MSRP level, much like what we've seen with Chilling Reign, much like what we've seen with Fusion Strike. 52,470 graded cards for Astral Radiance, so not nearly as popular as what we saw from Brilliant Stars. Lost Origin starting to trend in that upward direction again. Still not at that $200 price point as far as a booster box goes, but that's because it is still available at MSRP, so it's jumped up to $151.89. These were available for a long time, right around $100. Also, even after that reprint, you can see they dropped down to $126.95, which was a really great time to buy as well. You can see its potential at $169.17, which it hit in March of 2023, and now it's trending back into that direction at $151.89, a little bit more popular of a set. This is a set that people are going to enjoy for a while because of the Trainer Gallery in the set, plus that alternate art Giratina, that alternate art Aerodactyl, a lot of popularity in those cards, but it's currently sitting at $151.89 and continuing to trend in the upward direction. And then you've got the Silver Tempest. I think a lot of people are going to continue to want to open this set as well because of that alternate art Lugia. 76,717 graded cards. It's currently sitting at 130-150, which is basically the cheapest out of the last 4 out of those trainer gallery sets, but still well above its low point, which it hit in November. The reprint did impact this set and Lost Origin quite a bit, so it was at $111.68. But again, you can see that potential once it goes out of stock at the Pokemon Center website. That's when you start seeing the gains above MSRP. So not to be confused with when you should be buying, but when you start seeing those gains well above MSRP. So continuing to trend in the upward direction. Sword and Shield is going to be an era that a lot of people are very favorable on throughout the years, because it's going to relive nostalgia for a lot of a different generation. When we talk about the pandemic and we talk about all these people getting back into Pokemon and back into reliving their glory days of opening up cards when they were younger, in 20 years, 25 years, that could be this. If Pokemon continues to perform well and Pokemon continues to be a thing in 20 years, 25 years, a lot of the kids from today who are opening up these Sword and Shield sets might look back and say, hey, I want to open up Silver Tempest, or I want to open up Lost Origin. It was so much fun to relive, it'll be so much fun to relive that era with my children. And then it's just cyclical all over the place. But it really is more dependent on what's going to happen with Pokemon down the road, what the interest level looks like. You might have dark days. You might have worse days than what we're in right now as far as the market goes. It all depends on how Pokemon performs in the future, and that's why it's so important to make the best decision when it comes to spending your collection dollars, because it is your money. So go out there, look around, get information, get knowledge, collect what you like, but ultimately be careful not to be influenced. Like, it's very important to collect what you like and focus, stay true to that, and don't let the money side of things guide your judgment and guide your choices, because that's when things become less fun. That's when you become less enjoyed with the hobby, and that's when things get a lot more difficult for you. So I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like, leave a comment. I hope I explained everything well. I probably didn't. I'm sorry for that, but I love you guys. Really appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. Till next time, peace!